Hey guys, Killix here. I'm a multi-rank 1 PvPer, high-end keyer, raider, and one of WoW's top collectors. Today we're going to go over our abilities as a Holy Paladin and certain tips when it comes to using them all. The idea of this video is not to go in full in-depth guides or top rank plays, but to give a newer Holy Paladin a better understanding of how to use each of our abilities. I'm going to focus on a Herald build in this video, simply because it's the simplest of specs we have, and in my opinion it's actually the most fun. So we're just going to jump right into it, and as you can see, I've laid out all my abilities here. This is obviously not how I play when I play, but just to get a better understanding of every single ability we have, we'll just lay them out here, and we're going to go through every single one by one, right? Now, your Hand of Freedom is a 25-second cooldown, and it can get purged, so you have to be very careful with how you use this. Specifically versus mages, you don't really want to use this on cooldown versus mages, but sometimes your partner that you're playing with is going to be in a route, and you're going to have to break them out with it, right? Ideally, your partner or you want to have a cancel uh, macro for freedom and bop. That way, the mage cannot purge it. As far as using this versus any other comp that can't purge it, you want to basically use it on cooldown or whenever you know that your partner is moving, right? So if you're playing with a melee on your team and he's chasing down a target, this would be a very good time to freedom them. Or if you're playing with anybody that's getting trained like a warlock or shadow priest or anything like that and they're trying to kite, sometimes it's better to freedom them while they're low health instead of healing them, right? To help them mitigate damage by moving away from the target. Now your hand of sack is very good as well. It can be used to completely negate CC on you. So if you're ever fighting like a rogue or a mage or anything like that, if you have sack up, it's going to break any sort of CC that they throw at you. Oftentimes you can see a rogue running towards you, trying to blind you at the beginning, right? They usually sap you and they blind you, but sometimes they can't get a sap or a blind in the beginning of the game. So what you want to do versus this, like versus rogue specifically, you want to just watch where they are. And if they're starting to run towards you in the opener, for example, they're obviously going to blind you. So sometimes it's better to sack as they're running in. What I like to do versus rogue specifically, if I'm slowed, I will freedom myself and I will horse and I will run towards the rogue as I see him running towards me and then instantly sack my partner. Because while the normally 9 out of 10 times while a rogue is running towards you, they're spamming blind on you, right? So by the time you get in range of them with the horse, you're going extremely fast and you press sack, it'll already be too late for that rogue to not press blind, and they'll blind you and it'll break instantly with the sack, right? I actually win so many games because of that strategy. Other than that, you want to kind of use this not so much when your target is low health, but when they're high health on offensive enemy cooldowns, right? So for example, if a druid pops incarn or anything like that, you want to just sack immediately because that'll negate a lot of the damage, stuff like that. If a DK grips you in and you can get a sack in on one of your partners in between the grip, that is very good as well. Now your Consecrate is a very niche ability, right? Because if you're playing the PvP talent, Hollowed Ground, you can use this to help your partner's kite. You can use it to help get out of snares, help move. So like versus Acid Rogues, for example, you're constantly poisoned the entire fight and you're just RP walking the entire game, right? Now Consecrate is going to remove that RP walk and make you just walk at normal pace, right? So it's very helpful. Yeah, it's also very helpful with Judgment, right? So if you have a partner on your team and he's constantly being trained by a warrior, for example, you can essentially have 2 to 3 consecrates down at once the entire game. And what you can do, you can kind of spread them out, and your partner can kite in your consecrates, right? And completely negate the damage of the warrior. I've had games where my partner does such a well job kiting in my consecrates that the warrior on the enemy team is doing 300,000 DPS, where everyone on our team is doing 1 million and up, right? So they're nearly tripling, quadrupling the warrior's damage just because of how they're kiting, right? So sometimes it's better to use your utility to negate damage instead of having to just sit there and spam heal your partner against damage that is just like unhealable, right? Now, the other thing that I do at the beginning of every single game, you'll notice if you watch me play, I do this every single game, no matter what the comp. The first thing you do at the beginning is you cast Hand of Divinity. You go behind the you mount up, you run in, you go behind the pillar, you cast Hand of Divinity, then you cast Tears Deliverance, and then you Blessing of Summer either your partner or yourself. If you want to do more damage to the enemy team, you Blessing of Summer yourself. If you want to help healing, which most of the times you want to just help healing, you use it on your partner. This is very important. You do not want to summer a pet class. So you do not summer a Demolock, you do not summer a hunter, you do not summer a monk, right? You want to summon classes that are very physical, not physical, but hand-on-hand combat. So like warriors, Aflocks, Destrolocks, stuff like that. Evokers are very good. Boomies are very good. You want to stay away from summoning any sort of pet classes because for some reason summer doesn't interact properly with pet classes. So if you use it on a hunter, for example, or a windwalker, it'll do like almost nothing, right? The other thing is when you cast Hand of Divinity, you want to make sure you use those 2 free holy lights before they expire, and those holy lights will also extend your Tears Deliverance by 16 seconds if you use up both of them, okay? So it's very important in the opener. You get that Hand of Divinity out with Tears Deliverance, and then as damage is coming out, you use them, right? Even if your target is at full health, if your Hand of Divinity is about to expire, just press your Holy Light because it's going to be reduced mana. On top of that, it's also going to extend your tears. Now, your 2 beacons, let's talk about what you want to beacon in your on your team, right? So if you're doing 3s or solo shuffles, you almost never want to beacon yourself. You always want to beacon both of your targets. Now, there are certain matchups where you do want to beacon yourself, right? Because one of your partners might take 0 damage. So for example, if you're fighting a Dev Evoker Death Knight, it's very good to beacon yourself because oftentimes you will get gripped in and you will be the kill target versus that comp, right? Because they can grip you, they can blind you, they can stun you, they can triple stun DR you, and you could die, right? So it's very good to have beacon on yourself in those situations. But for example, if you're fighting like RMP, you don't really want to beacon yourself because you're almost 9 out of 10 times versus RMP, you're going to be spam CC'd. Right, so you want to have beacon on both of your targets, your partners. That way they can benefit from Lightbringer mastery, right? So wherever they are, where you're healing them, they're benefiting from your mastery, right? And your mastery increases your healing based off proximity of your target. So if you have beacon on both of your partners, they're both gonna benefit from your mastery. And if you're healing yourself, you're obviously within your proximity, so you fully benefit from your mastery at all times, right? So you almost never beacon yourself, but certain situations where if you're fighting a matchup and you notice one of your partners is taking literally 0 damage the entire game, you will want to beacon yourself. And as you're spam healing with Holy Shock, you're going to notice that you're going to constantly get an Absorb Shield on yourself, right, from Light of the Martyr. You want to just wog yourself every now and then, Eternal Flame yourself, and just put up the hot on yourself to help mitigate that absorb. You don't really have to spam heal yourself very often. You just have to keep up this Eternal Flame hot, and it'll slowly heal the absorb off of you. Now, as far as your auras, you almost always keep up Diva Aura. You never swap to Consecration Aura. There are certain niche situations versus Asa Rogues where you would want to swap to Concentration Aura, right? Because they're Garrotes and stuff like that, versus certain rogues like Sub Rogues, if they're spam silencing you, stuff like that. Asa Rogues, if they're spam silencing you, you want to make sure you want to have that Consecration Aura up because they're constantly silencing you so much and your team so much that the extra 30% reduction on their silence is going to be massive throughout the game, but you almost always want to Aura Mastery with Diva Aura up, right? Because Diva Aura is so overpowered in Arena at the moment. Now, let's talk about your Aura Mastery. If you're playing Divine Plea, which in certain matchups you're going to have to play Divine Plea, you want to almost press this ability on cooldown. But you also want to try to line it up with their cooldowns as well, right? Now, ideally, you don't really want to press Aura Mastery when your partners are low health, because if you're playing Divine Plea, it's going to significantly reduce your healing. When you're playing Divine Plea, you want to Aura Mastery for your mana, right? So ideally, you want to Aura Mastery when your partners are at full health and you're behind a pillar and you press Aura Mastery, and you can benefit from Divine Plea without it getting stolen or purged by the enemy team, right? Because when you press Aura Mastery with Divine Plea, it's going to give you a magic buff that can be also purged. So if you're fighting a mage and you're not line of sighting them and they notice that you press that and you have Divine Plea, they can steal it from you. And then you have like anywhere between a minute and a half to 2.5 to 3 minutes where you can't press Aura Mastery and you can't regen that mana back, right? And when you're playing Divine Plea, often you're playing because mana matters, so you want to min-max your mana to the fullest potential, right? Now, if you're not playing Divine Plea, like in most matchups, you're not going to play Divine Plea, you're going to play Hallowed Ground or Blessing of Spell Warding. If you're not playing Divine Plea, you're going to press this ability I would say about a minute to a minute and a half into the match, sometimes a minute into the game, because you want to rotate your wings first. Ideally, you want to rotate your wings first into your sack, into your, whatever other cooldowns you have, maybe a bop, lay on hands, and then Aura Mastery to help you recover for that forbearance, right? So, for example, if your partner is getting low and you need to top them, you don't have wings, you don't have Divine Toll, you might need to lay on hands them or bop them, and now they're going to be on forbearance for about 30 seconds. If you're intaking an absurd amount of damage during that gap of forbearance, to help you recover, you're going to press Aura Mastery, right? Versus certain comps, you might Aura Mastery very, very early. Like if you're fighting an Aflock and he presses every single offensive cooldown that he has, while he has full dots up on your entire party, you're going to want to Aura Mastery that to help negate that damage on their burst, right? If you're fighting a Boomy that presses Incarn, you usually want to press Aura Mastery. Aura Mastery is kind of an ability that you just kind of have to gauge the damage your partners are intaking at the time, and then press it if you think you're going to fall behind. Like if you have wings up with Rising Sunlight procs and the triple Holy Shock procs, and you're chilling on healing, there's no point for you to press Aura Mastery, right? But if your partners are at like half health, 70-80% health, and you have no wings, no Divine Toll, no Rising Sun light procs, obviously this would be a good time to either sack or Aura Mastery or bop or lay on hands or something like that, right? Now, your kick, obviously you want to try to stop as many things as you can. Unfortunately, our kick is very, very short range, so we're not often going to be utilizing this. You never really want to put yourself in a situation where you're out of place or in the enemy's face just to kick. But if you are near them and you see them casting something, just kick them. Literally just kick anything, because one kick will help tremendously the entire game. Now, your judgment, for the most part, with this judgment ability, you are just kind of pressing it for Empyrean Legacy, and if you're playing Unending Light, this will also buff your Light of Dawn as well. So when it comes to Light of Dawn and Judgment, these two come in hand. You're never going to press Light of Dawn specifically by itself, right? So honestly, this ability should not even be on your bars for a PvP. But your Judgment, every 20 seconds you can press Judgment and it'll give you a Empyrean Legacy buff, and when you WOG, it's going to automatically cast Light of Dawn and increase its healing by 25%, right? And if you're playing Unending Light, it's going to buff it up by an extra 45%, right? In most matches, I will play Unending Light over Tyrion's Devotion. It just depends on what the matchup is, right? And this will significantly buff your Empyrean Legacy Light of Dawn. As far as your horse goes, you're gonna use your horse, repentance, and hammer of justice hand in hand, right? You're gonna constantly be in a situation where you might be able to get a hodge off, but you're gonna be either slowed and you're gonna have to run towards your target, right? So oftentimes, if I'm not slowed, I'll horse hodge something and then I'll repentance it. And if they don't have kicks, I'll triple repentance them, right? Because I play 0 cooldown repentance. So a lot of the times, if you're in a situation where you can get 3 repentances off, it's very, very good. But never put yourself in a situation where you're going for that second repentance or the third repentance and your partners are very low health and you let them die because of it. But a lot of the times you'll see in the games that I play, getting that triple DR repentance actually wins games or actually forces trinkets, right? Your horse can also be used to kite, obviously. Like if you're getting trained or slowed or hit or you're in trouble, you can freedom yourself horse, run behind the run behind the pillar, cast Hand of Divinity, and then Tears Deliverance. Now, ideally, you always want to press Hand of Divinity first and then Tears. But in certain situations where you're taking a heavy amount of damage and they have kicks up, you're going to want to press Tears Deliverance first and then Hand of Divinity. Because it's more important to get that Tears of Deliverance up first and then Hand of Divinity. Because you might get kicked on one of these, right? But at least if you get Tears Deliverance up first, you'll have a small amount of passive healing that's healing you as you get kicked. Now we're going to talk about getting kicked as well. Sometimes you see me get kicked on purpose, right? So ideally, you can actually, as Herald, you can soak kicks by yourself. And it's very good to do so. It's very good to actually like sit there and cast the Holy Light, not because you want to cast the Holy Light, but because you want to get kicked on purpose, okay? A lot of the times, if you have full Holy Power, and you get kicked, you can still cast Eternal Flame. So it's very good to get full Holy Power and maybe even a Divine Purpose proc and get kicked. And then you'll still be able to Eternal Flame and you just ate that kick and you're also healing at the same time, right? As far as Shield of Righteousness, you're never pressing this. Don't even put this on your bars. Holy Light, you're never going to cast this ever. Literally never cast this. It's very rare you cast Holy Light or Flash of Light. Flash of Light you can cast sometimes if you're just completely out of abilities to press. If you don't have Holy Shocks, if you don't have Holy Prism, if you don't have Wogs. Sometimes you're going to have to cast Flash of Light. Sometimes, very, very rarely. As far as your summers, your blessings, you pretty much use every single blessing on yourself, aside from Blessing of Summer. You will use this on a partner to help you heal most games, right? If there are games where you want to just do damage, you're gonna summer your partner. Other than that, not do damage, sorry. You're gonna summer yourself if there are games where you want to actually min-max your damage, because Blessing of Summer actually does quite a significant amount of damage on burst, for example, in openers. But often, more than not, I'll summer my partner just to help with healing, right? As far as Divine Protection, you want to press this whenever you're taking damage, whenever you're getting hit, whenever you're getting trained, obviously. Crusader Strike, you're almost never really pressing this as Herald. The only time you're ever really pressing this is if you can pair this with Hand of Reckoning, your taunt. So if you're fighting a class with pets, for example, a lot of the times you can taunt the pet towards you, and you can just like if you don't have Holy Shock or any ability, you can press Crusader Strike and generate a Holy Power, right? Which will help in certain niche cases. As far as your bubble, you're going to obviously use this when you get low health. Your bubble should be the last defensive that you ever press versus any comp. It should be like an oh shit button, right? Your bop is almost always used on your partners. Now, again, you want to use this defensively on your enemies' offensive cooldown trades, right? So if you're fighting a Feral, for example, whenever he presses Berserk or Incarn, you just want to instantly bop your target, right? If you're fighting a Rogue, for example, if they're playing Kingsbane, you want to instantly bop that. If they're playing Death's Mark, you want to instantly bop that. more often than not, you will not bop a first kidney. Sometimes you will bop a second or a third kidney. So for example, if your partner has trinket in the opener and he gets kidneyed, you're not gonna really bop that unless your offensive pressure is so great that you want to keep your offensive pressure up. Your partner should not be trinketing before bomb, so they're almost always gonna sit the first stun, right? And what you want to do with bop is you want to kind of feel it out and you want to try to bop the bombs, right? So if your partner doesn't have a trinket, for example, and he's getting trained and he gets kidneyed and the rogue just CC'd you, like if you just got CC'd and your partner gets kidneyed and he doesn't have trinket and the rogue has bomb, this would be a very good time to trinket bop or trinket sack, right? Because they're almost more than likely gonna bomb that go. As far as your cleanse, you should be using this pretty much on cooldown the entire game, 24/7. You want to constantly be cleansing people, constantly be cleansing your partners out of CC. And you're also benefiting for a just reward, right? You're healing your partners every single time you cleanse. So it's double dipping on cleansing and healing. Your Searing Glare, you kind of want to try to not really position yourself in a way to where you're going to get spam CC'd or spam kicked or spam interrupted by pressing this ability. But for example, if you're fighting a team, Searing Glare is very good versus double melee, right? So if you're fighting a team where your partner's just open on them and they get stunned or feared or something, and you see that they're feared, like 1 or 2 seconds before their CC ends, just cast a glare and it'll chain that CC, right? Because your partners just CC the enemy team, they're not doing damage, and if you chain the glare, they're not going to be doing damage for 4 seconds, right? Searing Glare is absolutely insane. It literally completely negates almost 100% of the enemy damage for 4 seconds, right? So a lot of times you'll see me when we get low health, I might be in a bubble or they might not have kicks up. Instead of healing my partner that's at like 10% health, I'll literally cast a Searing Glare because I know it'll stop like almost all of the damage, right? For those 2 to 3, 4 seconds. Sometimes one of them will get cleansed, but it'll at least stop damage for 1 to 2 globals, right? Which is very huge. As far as your Holy Prism, you almost want to always use this on your partners. We're not playing Barrier of Faith anymore because Barrier of Faith did not get buffed this patch, but Holy Prism got significantly buffed, right? It got a 100% buff. So it's actually very, very good to use now, and it does quite a significant amount of damage. And it's going to help a lot more because it can be used as like a pick-me-up heal. Like if your target gets low, boom, you Holy Prison them, does a fat heal on them, and then you can walk them right after with your Divine Purpose proc. As far as your wings, you're almost always using this within the first 20 to 30 seconds of every single game, right? You want to get that wings on cooldown almost instantly. A lot of the times you'll see me sit a ton of CC in the opener, and immediately out of the CC, if I don't trinket, I'll immediately wings either Divine Toll or Holy Shock. It's often better to wings Holy Shock first because Divine Toll has travel time, right? So if you're greeting CC in the opener, your partner could actually die before the Divine Toll heals them. So ideally you want to wings, Holy Shock, and then Divine Toll, and then spam wogs. So wings, Holy Shock, wog, Divine Toll, wog, Holy Shock, wog. Now, the other common mistake that I see a lot of people do, and even I do it myself, sometimes you overload on Rising Sunlight procs, which allows your Holy Shock to basically cast 3 times every single time you cast it. Sometimes you'll overload on these procs and you'll have 3 to 4 of them. And sometimes they might expire, right? You want to kind of not overstack your Rising Sunlights, so you don't really want to wings and Divine Toll at the same time sometimes, unless you have to, right? Like if you're falling behind on healing and you have to, you'll do it, right? You kind of want to spread out your wings and your Divine Toll because both of those abilities are very good cooldowns, right? As far as Holy Shock goes, you want to almost always use one. Ideally, you want to have both charges on cooldown 24/7 the entire game. But you want to have at least one charge on cooldown the entire game, right? So you're always pressing Holy Shock, Wog, Holy Shock, Wog, right? Now, sometimes you might have Rising Sunlight procs that are about to expire, and all your partners are at full health. A lot of the times, it's also very good to attack the enemy team with your Rising Sunlight procs. If your Holy Shock crits on the enemy target on all 3 crits, you can hit them for over 1,000,000 damage, right? That's a significant amount of damage for a healer. I've had games where I kill people myself, right? As far as your Eternal Flame, obviously you want to min-max using this as much as possible. Your Eternal Flame and your Holy Shock is going to be your #1 healing every single game, right? So you just want to maximize how many Holy Shocks you cast and how many Wogs you cast, right? The other thing that you're going to play around in your hero talents is going to be your Blessing of Ange. If you ever get a Blessing of Ange proc, it's very good to have a weak aura for this. And if you want, you can go to my Twitch profile and go to my Discord. And in my Discord, I have all of my weak auras and everything. I have every single weak aura, all my UI and everything linked in my Discord. I have a weak aura for Blessing of Ange. So anytime a Blessing of Ange procs, my Holy Shock glows. You want to prioritize using these procs, because that Holy Shock is going to be a massive heal. And what's going to happen sometimes you're going to get back-to-back Blessing of Ange procs, right? So you never want to waste those procs. What I mean by that is sometimes you could be healing with Wogs and stuff, and spam healing with Wogs, Holy Prism, whatever, and you get a Blessing of Ange proc, and you don't press your Holy Shock, and then you press another Wog, and then you just got another Blessing of Ange proc. So you just wasted a massive Holy Shock heal because you didn't press Holy Shock in between, right? So sometimes, even if you are fully capped on Holy Power, you have 5 Holy Power, and you're about to press Eternal Flame, sometimes it's better to press your Blessing of Ange Holy Shock proc, right? Now, as far as your land hands goes, which is going to be the last ability we talk about here, this is a pretty long video. I didn't expect it to be quite this long. But as far as your land hands goes, this is something that you want to use very, very early on. And if you're playing with Tyrion's Devotion, you're usually going to have 2 of them up every single game, right? Because if you're min-maxing, spamming Wogs, Eternal Flames, you're going to constantly get your land hands up faster, right? Now, early game, this ability should be used as like a trinket lay on hands, oh shit moment, or you just sat a ton of CC and your partner's low health, and you know that your Wog or your Holy Shock is not going to top them because they're so low, you lay on hands them. Late game, the way you're going to use this ability is as like a last second oh shit button to top your team because dampening is so high that you can't heal them, right? Now, Empyrean Ward is going to make this ability insanely overpowered into late dampening because it's almost always going to top your partners even into high dampening, okay? As long as they don't have some sort of like you know, if they're not like at 2% health, it might not fully top them, but this is probably your biggest heal into late dampening, okay? Now, that's about as much as we're going to go over today for our abilities. I just wanted to put out this video to get a basic understanding of all of our abilities in our toolkit as a Holy Paladin, especially when you're playing Herald, right? If you found this video helpful, drop a like, subscribe, and just let me know in the comments what comp you're running or what guide you want to see next. Don't forget to watch me on Twitch when I'm live, and if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. I'm Killux, and I'll see you in the next one.